Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 17 of The Captain's Heart. Mr. Bradshaw. The voice forced Jeremy to look up from his tablet, and he was surprised to realize he was among the living deck. He barely had a memory of exiting the lift as he'd gone over what he'd learned and worked out. Commander Jackson. He looked around to confirm he was where he thought he was. He couldn't imagine the man in charge of the station coming to this level. Is something wrong? What else would he be here? Not at all. The men motioned for them to continue walking. I was informed you'd returned from their ship, so I thought I'd check in on you. Check in with you. Maybe see if you have an ETA for me as to when I'll be able to send them on their way. I don't. Care to elaborate? The commander asked when Jeremy didn't. How technical do you want me to get, sir? Keep it to a layman's level. Okay. He considered it. At its basic, the problem is their manufacturing process. They don't mass produce, at least when it comes to the reactor. That doesn't seem efficient. I agree with you, but it means that while I have access to the damaged components in the reactor, I can't just order replacement from storage and swap them. Because they aren't standardized, I also can't put them next to an undamaged one and study the differences. Don't they have plans for them? Something you can print? They do, but they're in their engineer's personal system, or that's how it sounded. As good as Turek's English is, I don't think he was able to explain it to me properly. Also, I think he's scared of the guy or girl. He only refers to them as the engineer and the point, please. I couldn't get access to them. He wouldn't enter the office, and I don't read Kelsirian. I'll see to it you have access. That isn't needed, sir. I'm sure I can explain things to him. In the meantime, I'm going to my lab to print those I scanned and see what I can learn. Jeremy, Turek greeted him from the ship's access. He said something to the guard, a white-furred Kelsirian, no taller than him this time. I'm glad to see you. And there would be a D here. And I'm glad you finally dropped the word you were putting before my name. Engineer. That is what you mean. That is what it means, and it is what you are. Sure, but we're co-workers, so there's no need to use titles. I am. Okay, at this point, he's not going to be doing too many contractions. I am a technician. I should address you as engineer, but I will explain it as it being an Earther costume when questioned. When I am questioned. Also, engineering will be busier. We are running through stress tests for he eventually shrugged. Rest of the generators. The rest of the generator. Is that going to run through the reactor? I want to test some boards I reproduced and modified. Its capacitors are isolated. Are you some sort of linguistic genius? Your English is a lot better than yesterday, and that was better than the day before, he added at the confused expression. I learned it. Yes, and extremely fast. No, normally fast. I will have 3 more sessions with the counselor before I am done. What kind of counselor? Jeremy couldn't imagine how anyone could assist at such a level. Mood counselor. Turek frowned. Emotions. He shook his head, then tapped the side of it. She helps make sure it works well, and she puts your language in. Language implantation? I didn't know that was a thing among your people. Everyone in the Federation has them. You will too when you are part of it. As Turk had warned, the room was busy. All right, let's get to work. It's kind of remarkable, Jeremy said while Omar pulled the weight down. To them, antimatter technology is a mix of science and art. Oh, give me a break, his friend said with derision. Science is science and art is art. They're just trying to make you think they're so advanced they don't have to bother with rigorous tests. He gently let the weight move up to the holding plate, then wiped his brow. No, you don't get it. Jeremy moved below and took hold of the handle. His earpiece informed him the number of repetition and the mass he was working with, then he pulled it down. The science is as rigorous as ours, more so possibly. The difference is that they don't work with standardized circuit boards. Their engineer, Hallex, designed them to fix what he was working with. Don't you do that? If what I need it to do isn't on record, sure, but I haven't had to do that, and I haven't even had to do that 3 times in the 5 years I've been here. It's all about assembling what we have to get the result I'm after. So we have a more efficient system than they do. Yeah, but their way lends itself to versatility, I think. I think you're giving them more credit than they deserve. Jeremy let the weight raise it to its cradle. And you're being needlessly unkind. Omar shrugged. How about that captain of theirs? Has he been bothering you again? He passes by, but he's the captain. I figure it's part of his job description. Jeremy motioned for his friend to take the spot and did his best to keep his expression neutral. He was downplaying how often Growler had come by, even if he'd mostly kept his distance. Even now, the memory of those golden eyes watching him made his stomach protest. Even if Turek had gone to speak with him each time, and even motioned to the others working, Jeremy couldn't shake the feeling he was the reason Growler came by. There's something in that expression that... He winced at the pain. Do you need another pill? Omar asked, hand holding the weight. They're in my room, and I'll be fine. Let's just get through this so we can join the others for dinner. So, this is how it should be installed, right? Jeremy asked Turek, who looked over the work. Well, the Kelsirian didn't know much about the design of the board. He had had to install them. So that part he could confirm Jeremy had gotten right. Yes, the connections are correct. I could have installed it for you. I know, but for now, I want to do it myself. Get a feel for how this was designed. The tightening and stretching of the lips was very much like a human one. It was more like a human smile. As far as Jeremy thought, if he didn't pay attention to the tip of the teeth that ended being visible. Kelsirian had sharp-looking teeth. What's funny? The engineer is very much like that. When he works on the reactor, he chases away anyone who tries to help. Turek hesitated. He will not be happy that you are touching it. You'll be able to tell him I took good care of it. And if it helps, I'll tell him how amazing his design is. It won't. Turek looked over Jeremy's shoulder. His stomach protested preemptively, he dry swallowed a pill. Then Growler spoke, and Jeremy's bone shook. The theater exploded into laughter as a group of Kelsirian ran into the zero-G room and started floating about. Flaying wildly for anything they could reach, and mewing in distress as they drifted past without being able to grasp it. Jeremy forced a chuckle while his ears burned in embarrassment at the memory of laughing at such idiotic antics. Kelsirians weren't so simple they'd run into a room blindly, and if they were tricked in it, Jeremy didn't think they would be flying like that. Pirates, like those they were supposed to be in the movie, would be used to working without gravity. Growler would push against the wall to help any who had drifted out of reach. Even Turek would help those who were stuck. There was something of high competence about the technician he worked with. This has to be their best work, Ginny said. Ginny said, still chuckling as they left. The way they just tangled themselves and for the guards to reel in, priceless. They have claws, Jeremy said, regretting it. They were supposed to be having fun together. What do you mean? He meant that it was stupid to treat a spacefaring species like they were idiot children. I just think it was an easy joke to go for. Especially since they established they know how to use them in that fight right before that. Since when did you become critical of your comedies? William asked, and Jeremy shrugged. It's all those cats he's hanging around with while he works, Marcel said. They're giving him ideas. Jeremy didn't reply. He certainly didn't point out. He felt like calling them cats was insulting. Omar grabbed his arm. Let's go eat something. He pulled Jeremy along. And find something less troubling for our friend to talk about. Something's wrong? Turek asked, and Jeremy realized that instead of setting the newly printed board in place, he'd been looking at the technicians in the room. They were back to under a dozen of them. Growler had stopped by twice already, and Jeremy thought Turek had tried too hard to make it look like he wasn't what the taller Kelsirian had been interested in. Jeremy had certainly felt the golden eyes on him the entire time. He shook his head and focused on putting it in. The last three had shorted. He didn't expect better from this one, but they'd shorted in different ways, so he was learning something about how Alex, Turek had corrected his pronunciation, had designed it. He hoped that some of what he learned here would make working with the other boards easier. You can tell me, Turek said, even if it's about the captain. The image of Growler gave his stomach a twist, but it passed. It's fine. It's a human thing. How was he supposed to explain to him that until a few days ago he'd happily mocked him and his species? Will a counselor help? He chuckled at the chuckle escaped at the idea of telling Omar any of this. He might not be a psychologist, but he'd still been who Jeremy told everything to. At least until recently. He didn't want to call his friends a speciesist, but Omar clearly didn't care for Kelsirians as people. Probably not, Jeremy said. Let's focus on working. Sorry, Lucy. I'm going to be in the lab for a few more hours. I have to figure out how these work. You need a break, she replied. Her voice carrying disappointment. I know, but the commander wants this done as soon as possible. Blaming the commander for not being able to hang out with his friends was easy, and basically true. Although he doubted the man would complain if Jeremy took time to relax. It was simpler to avoid his friends than dealing with the constant Kelsirian's joke. Do I have to tell Omar about this? She threatened. He hoped his chuckle didn't sound as forced as it felt. Please don't. I have work to do. Look, I'll make sure to have time for the gang over the weekend. Perfect. I'm going to arrange a movie outing. Not. But she'd already ended the call. Jeremy hung his head and hoped none of the new comedies were about Kelsirians. And that concludes chapter 17 of The Captain's Heart. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this story, it is available, it is ongoing on Ream Story. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.